Arsenal back in training ahead of Borussia Dortmund clash. Bruno Guimaraes joins the group after Real Betis defeat. Boom! Welcome back, Gunners! Arsenal are back on the training pitch, and the focus has immediately shifted toward the next major pre-season challenge, Borussia Dortmund at the Emirates Stadium. The Gunners are looking to respond after suffering their first defeat of pre-season, a disappointing 3-1 loss to Real Betis in Dublin. The result was not what Mikel Arteta wanted, but with the new season approaching quickly, Arsenal have no time to stay frustrated. The response has to come on the training ground and then against Dortmund. And there is another huge storyline dominating Arsenal right now. Bruno Guimaraes is finally becoming an Arsenal player. The Brazilian midfielder has completed his medical and signed his contract after Arsenal reached an agreement with Newcastle United over a deal worth around £75 million. Reports on August 7th indicated that Guimaraes was already at Arsenal and had been involved in training, while the club worked through the final administrative steps before the official announcement. This is exactly the kind of development Arsenal supporters have been waiting for. So what happened after the Real Betis defeat? Who has Arsenal signed this summer? Which players have already left the club? And what does Bruno Guimaraes bring to Mikel Arteta's squad? Let's break everything down. Arsenal return to training after Real Betis defeat. Arsenal's pre-season preparations have moved into another important phase. The Gunners travelled to Dublin for their meeting with Real Betis, but the night ended in disappointment as Arsenal were beaten 3-1. It was Arsenal's first defeat of pre-season, and the performance gave Arteta plenty to think about before the Dortmund match. Sky Sports reported that a Kepa Arrizabalaga error helped Real Betis open the scoring before the Spanish side went on to claim victory. For Arsenal, however, pre-season is about more than simply the result. Arteta is using these matches to build fitness, establish combinations, assess his squad, and prepare his players for competitive football. The defeat against Real Betis therefore becomes another lesson. The response is now important. Arsenal have returned to work with Borussia Dortmund waiting at the Emirates Stadium in the Emirates Cup. The match is scheduled for Sunday, August 9th, giving the Gunners a quick opportunity to put the Betis defeat behind them. And this time the atmosphere around the squad is different because there is a major new arrival. Bruno Guimaraes joins the Arsenal training environment. This is the headline Arsenal supporters have been waiting for. Bruno Guimaraes is now on the verge of officially beginning his Arsenal career. The 28-year-old Brazil international has agreed a move from Newcastle United worth around £75 million. Arsenal and Newcastle reached the agreement after negotiations, with Newcastle initially holding out for a higher figure. Guimaraes had already made it clear that he wanted the move. Newcastle sporting director Ross Wilson explained that the club had not originally planned to sell their captain, but the midfielder communicated his desire to leave and move on. Newcastle ultimately accepted the situation and agreed a deal with Arsenal. That makes the transfer particularly significant. Arsenal are not simply signing another midfielder. They are bringing in an experienced Premier League player who has already demonstrated his quality at the highest level. Guimaraes has made 195 appearances for Newcastle in all competitions since joining from Lyon in January 2022, becoming one of the club's most important players and eventually taking the captain's armband. Now his next chapter is Arsenal, and the timing could hardly be more interesting. After the defeat against Real Betis, Arteta now has the opportunity to introduce his new midfielder to the training environment and begin working on how he fits into the team's midfield structure. Imagine the possibilities. Bruno Guimaraes alongside Declan Rice. Bruno Guimaraes competing for a midfield role with Arsenal's existing options. Bruno bringing aggression, technical quality, ball recovery, passing ability, and Premier League experience. That is a very exciting prospect for Arsenal supporters. However, there is an important detail. As of the latest reports, Arsenal had not yet completed the public unveiling of Guimaraes, with administrative matters delaying the official announcement. But reports indicated that he had already been involved in training. So Arsenal fans can expect the official announcement very soon. The Real Betis defeat must now be forgotten. The 3-1 defeat against Real Betis was disappointing, but Arsenal cannot afford to allow one pre-season result to dominate their preparations. The purpose of these games is to identify problems before the competitive season begins. And Arteta now has another opportunity against Borussia Dortmund. The Dortmund match will be played at the Emirates Stadium, meaning Arsenal supporters will get another chance to see the squad in action on home soil. This is also an important moment for the summer signings. Arsenal have been relatively selective in the transfer market compared with some of their Premier League rivals, but the club have still made several important additions. And now, with Guimaraes arriving, the squad has another major piece. Arsenal's confirmed summer signings. Let's take a look at the players Arsenal have brought in during the 2026 summer transfer window. Pierre Hincapié first. Arsenal made Pierre Hincapié's move permanent. The Ecuador international originally arrived on loan, but Arsenal completed the permanent transfer from Bayer Leverkusen for a reported fee of around £34.5 million. He has now become part of Arteta's defensive group on a permanent basis. Hincapié gives Arsenal another left-footed defensive option and adds competition within the back line. His ability to defend aggressively, carry the ball forward and operate across defensive positions makes him an important addition. Illan Meslier. Arsenal also signed goalkeeper Illan Meslier from Leeds United on a free transfer. Meslier gives Arsenal additional goalkeeping depth and provides competition within the squad. The move was confirmed as one of Arsenal's first summer additions. The arrival of Meslier is also significant because Arsenal are managing their goalkeeping department differently heading into the new campaign. Christos Tzolis. Then came Christos Tzolis. Arsenal completed the signing of the Greece international from Club Brugge for approximately £34 million. Tzolis signed a 5-year contract and became Arsenal's third permanent signing of the summer at that stage. The winger arrives after an outstanding campaign in Belgium. His attacking ability gives Arteta another option in the wide areas, while his arrival also helps Arsenal replace the attacking output lost through Leandro Trossard's departure. Tzolis has already featured during pre-season, giving supporters an early opportunity to see what he can bring to the team. Bruno Guimaraes. And now we come to the biggest addition of the current window, Bruno Guimaraes. The agreement with Newcastle is worth approximately £75 million, and the Brazilian has completed his medical and signed his Arsenal contract according to the latest reports. That makes Guimaraes the fourth major summer addition once the move is formally announced by Arsenal. His arrival dramatically changes the conversation around Arsenal's midfield. Arteta now has another elite-level option who can contribute defensively, progress the ball and help control matches. Arsenal players who have left the club this summer. Now let's talk about the other side of the transfer window. Arsenal have also allowed several players to leave. Leandro Trossard completed a move to Besiktas. The Belgian forward had been an important squad player for Arsenal, providing goals and versatility across the front line. His departure opened the door for Arsenal to bring in another attacking option, and that player became Christos Tzolis. Arsenal's signing of Tzolis was explicitly reported as part of the club's response to Trossard's departure. Jakub Kiwior also left Arsenal, joining Porto in a permanent transfer. The Polish defender had provided useful depth during his time at the Emirates, but Arsenal decided to move him on after bringing Pierre Hincapié into the squad permanently. Goalkeeper Karl Hein also departed Arsenal, joining Werder Bremen. His move was part of the changes to Arsenal's goalkeeping department, with Illan Meslier arriving as a new option. Young defender Josh Nichols also left Arsenal after his contract situation was resolved. His departure was included among the summer exits from the club. Christian Nørgaard. Another important departure is Christian Nørgaard. The Danish midfielder joined Everton permanently after 1 season at Arsenal. The transfer was completed for a reported fee of around £7 million. Nørgaard arrived at Arsenal from Brentford in 2025 and made 20 appearances in all competitions during his time with the club. His departure is particularly relevant because Arsenal are now adding Bruno Guimaraes to the midfield. In simple terms, Arsenal have lost Nørgaard but are replacing that midfield squad space with a much more high-profile addition in Guimaraes. The bigger picture for Arteta. When you look at the summer window as a whole, Arsenal have made some very calculated changes. Hincapié strengthens the defence. Meslier adds goalkeeping depth. Tzolis adds another attacking option. Guimaraes adds elite midfield quality. At the same time, Arsenal have moved on Trossard, Kiwior, Hein, Nichols and Nørgaard. That means the squad is evolving without a complete rebuild. And this is important. Arsenal are coming off a Premier League title-winning season. The objective is not to destroy the squad and start again. The objective is to improve it. Arteta and sporting director Andrea Berta have therefore focused on targeted changes, and Bruno Guimaraes could be the biggest of those changes. What can Bruno Guimaraes bring? The Brazilian midfielder gives Arsenal qualities that can be extremely valuable in big matches. First, he is comfortable receiving the ball under pressure. Second, he has the physicality to compete in midfield battles. Third, he can progress the ball. Fourth, he has extensive Premier League experience. And fifth, he brings personality. That final point should not be underestimated. Guimaraes has captained Newcastle and was one of their most influential players. Now he joins a squad that already contains strong personalities and experienced leaders. The potential midfield combinations are fascinating. Declan Rice brings power, athleticism and defensive quality. Martin Odegaard provides creativity and control. Bruno Guimaraes brings intensity, technique and experience. Then Arsenal have young players who can continue developing around them. This gives Arteta more tactical possibilities. Arsenal versus Borussia Dortmund. Now the focus turns to Dortmund. The Emirates Cup clash comes just days after the Real Betis defeat. That means Arsenal supporters will be watching closely for a reaction. Will Arsenal show more intensity? Will the passing improve? Will the pressing become sharper? Will the new signings make an impact? And, most importantly, will Bruno Guimaraes get another opportunity to continue integrating into his new surroundings? Those are the questions surrounding the match. Dortmund will provide a completely different challenge from Real Betis, and Arsenal need to use the match as another serious preparation exercise before competitive football begins. The new season is getting closer. There is no room for complacency. Arsenal's injury situation, a major test for Arteta. But while Arsenal are welcoming Bruno Guimaraes and preparing for Borussia Dortmund, there is another important issue Mikel Arteta must manage carefully: the injury situation. Arsenal's squad is getting stronger through the summer transfer window, but the Gunners still have some important players working through their respective recovery programs. The biggest concern remains William Saliba, extended absence. William Saliba is facing an extended period on the sidelines after suffering a back injury while representing France at the 2026 World Cup. Arsenal confirmed that specialist assessments showed the centre-back needed a period of rehabilitation. Importantly, the club said surgery was not recommended, meaning Saliba's recovery will be managed carefully rather than through an operation. This is a major blow for Arteta. Saliba has established himself as one of Arsenal's most important defenders, and losing him for an extended period means the manager has to rely on the depth available in central defence. The positive side for Arsenal is that Piero Hincapié is now part of the squad permanently, while Christian Mosquera also gives Arteta another defensive option. That depth could become extremely important while Saliba completes his rehabilitation. The priority is simple: Arsenal cannot rush him back. A player of Saliba's importance needs to return when he is genuinely ready, rather than being pushed into action too early. Jurrien Timber working towards full fitness. Jurrien Timber is another player Arsenal are monitoring closely. Timber has been working his way back after dealing with a groin issue and undergoing minor surgery. The latest information indicates that he has rejoined the group, although he has not yet been considered fully back to normal training. Earlier comments indicated that his rehabilitation had been progressing, but the club would continue to manage his return carefully. That means Arsenal supporters should be careful when looking at training photographs or squad lists. Being back around the team does not automatically mean a player is ready to start a competitive match. Timber's versatility makes his return particularly valuable. He can operate at right back and in central defence, giving Arteta tactical flexibility. With Saliba unavailable for an extended period, getting Timber back to full fitness could become increasingly important. Ben White, an important clarification. Now, there is an important clarification regarding Ben White. White suffered a significant knee injury late last season, but the latest detailed Arsenal pre-season information indicates that he had recovered sufficiently to return to full training. So we should not say that Ben White is currently an injured absentee from Arsenal's training group. Instead, the correct description is that White has been working his way back after the knee problem that ended his previous campaign. That distinction matters. Arsenal supporters have seen White's name mentioned in injury discussions, but his latest reported status is much more positive. For Arteta, having White available again provides another option on the right side of the defence. And with Timber still being managed carefully and Saliba facing an extended absence, White's availability could be very useful during the build-up to the new season. Louis Copley, heartbreaking setback. Then there is the most painful story from Arsenal's defeat against Real Betis. Young midfielder Louis Copley suffered a ruptured ACL during the match. Copley had only recently been beginning to experience senior football and was hoping to use pre-season as an opportunity to show Arteta what he could do. Instead, his season has been thrown into uncertainty by a serious knee injury. Reports confirm that Copley suffered the ACL rupture during the Real Betis match, with the 19-year-old later speaking publicly about the devastating setback. Arsenal players, including Declan Rice and other teammates, showed their support for the youngster. This is particularly heartbreaking because Copley was trying to establish himself. For a young player, pre-season can be one of the most important periods of the year. It is a chance to train with the first team, impress the manager, and potentially earn more opportunities. Copley had been given that opportunity. Unfortunately, the injury has now forced him onto a much longer road. The entire Arsenal family will be hoping he can make a strong recovery and return to football when he is ready. What does this mean for the Dortmund match? So, as Arsenal prepare for Borussia Dortmund, Arteta has to balance two things. First, he needs to build momentum after the 3-1 defeat to Real Betis. Second, he must manage his squad carefully. Pre-season is not the time to take unnecessary risks. The objective is to have the strongest possible squad ready when competitive football begins. Saliba's absence means Arsenal need defensive stability. Timber's managed return means Arteta has to be patient. White's return to full training is a positive development, and Copley's ACL injury is a reminder that football can change in a single moment. Bruno Guimaraes changes the midfield picture. This is also where Bruno Guimaraes becomes even more important. Arsenal have added a high-quality midfielder while simultaneously losing some squad depth through departures. Guimaraes gives Arteta another experienced Premier League player who can compete at the highest level. His arrival does not solve the defensive injury situation, but it does strengthen another area of the squad. And that is exactly what Arsenal wanted from this transfer window. The club have not simply been replacing injured players. They have been building a deeper squad. Hincapié strengthens the defence. Meslier adds goalkeeping depth. Tzolis provides another attacking option. And Guimaraes adds major quality in midfield. Now Arteta must turn those individual additions into a stronger collective team. The big question for Arteta. The biggest question now is whether Arsenal can maintain their standards while some key players are unavailable or still returning to full fitness. The answer will depend on squad depth. If Arsenal want to compete for the Premier League title and go deep in Europe, they cannot depend on one starting 11. They need competition for every position. They need players capable of stepping in when required. And they need their returning players to be managed correctly. That is why the next few weeks will be so important. Dortmund is another opportunity for Arteta to test his squad. The Emirates Cup is not a competitive Premier League fixture, but the intensity and quality of the opposition make it a valuable preparation match. After losing 3-1 to Real Betis, Arsenal supporters will want to see a reaction. They will also want to see how the new-look squad is developing. And if you are an Arsenal fan, make sure you stay tuned for all the latest updates as Arsenal prepare for Dortmund and the new season.